felt like the world is against you? Where do you turn for protection when the odds seem stacked? We've all been there, haven't we? A moment where challenges seem insurmountable and the dawn appears distant. It's in these moments that we yearn for a safe haven, a shield, a protector. This brings us to the heart of our discussion today, the profound theme of trust in divine protection. In times like these, Psalm 3 from the Bible offers a comforting perspective. Psalm 3 begins with a cry for help. Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are they that rise up against me. This desperate plea sets the stage for a narrative that many of us can relate to, the feeling of being surrounded, overwhelmed, and outnumbered by adversaries. To fully understand the depth of this psalm, let's delve into its historical context. The author, King David, pens these words while fleeing from his son Absalom. Imagine the heartbreak. His own flesh and blood, the one he nurtured and loved, has become his enemy. This is not just a battle on a physical front, but an emotional and spiritual one too. Now, let's transport this scenario into our lives. We may not be literal kings or queens, fleeing from rebellious offspring, but we all face battles. Perhaps it's the battle against self-doubt, the struggle with a challenging work environment, or the fight against loneliness or illness. In these moments, it can feel like the odds are stacked against us, much like they were for King David. But it's precisely in these moments, when the night is darkest, that Psalm 3 offers a beacon of hope. It reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. Just as King David did, we can cry out, Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? This is not a cry of defeat, but rather a declaration of trust. It's an acknowledgement of the reality of our situation, coupled with the conviction that we do not face it alone. This is the raw human emotion that Psalm 3 captures, the feeling of being overwhelmed, yet refusing to be overcome. It's a reminder that it's okay to admit when we're scared, when things are tough, when we feel like we're drowning. It's okay to cry out for help. Despite these fears, the psalmist turns to God, showing us the first step towards divine protection, acknowledging our fears and reaching out for help. The psalmist then expresses faith in divine protection. But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter up of mine head. In the heart of turmoil, a shift occurs, a transition from fear to faith. This is the turning point of the psalm where darkness gives way to light, despair turns into hope. The psalmist, once beset by enemies, now finds an unshakable faith in the divine. The metaphor of God as a shield is powerful. A shield in its essence is not an instrument of aggression but one of defense, a protective barrier against the arrows of adversity. It signifies God's role as our ultimate protector, our safeguard against the trials and tribulations that life throws our way. But this shield is not just a physical one, it's a spiritual shield, a shield of faith that guards our hearts and minds. And then, the psalmist refers to God as the lifter of the head, a profound metaphor imbued with layers of meaning. In ancient times, to have one's head lifted was a sign of restored honor, an end to shame or defeat. It symbolizes the restoration of dignity, the resurgence of strength. When God is the lifter of our head, it means that He restores us, lifts us from our lowly state, heals our inner wounds, and renews our strength. It's a powerful testament to God's transformative power, His ability to turn our trials into triumphs, our tests into testimonies. In the midst of our struggles, we often bow our heads in defeat. But God, in His infinite mercy and love, lifts our heads high. He restores our dignity, renews our strength, and revives our spirit. This psalm beautifully illustrates the shift from fear to faith. It reminds us that even when we're surrounded by challenges, we have this divine assurance, this blessed assurance that God is our shield, our glory, and the lifter of our heads. Even in the most challenging times, faith assures us of divine protection. With newfound faith, the psalmist cries out to God. I cried unto the Lord with my voice, and He heard me out of His holy hill. This verse is a testament to the power of prayer and a reaffirmation of faith. It speaks of a relationship that is intimate and personal, a relationship that is built on communication and trust. Prayer, as we see here, is more than a ritual. It's a conversation, a dialogue between the psalmist and God. It's a cry from the heart, a plea for help, an expression of trust and faith. And what is more beautiful than the fact that God hears this cry, that He listens, truly listens, to the cries of His children. This is not a distant, detached deity, but a God who is intimately involved in the lives of His people. The importance of this divine communication cannot be overstated. Through prayer we express our deepest fears, our greatest hopes, our most profound questions. We lay bare our souls, inviting God into our lives, into our struggles, into our joys, and in doing so, we acknowledge His sovereignty, His wisdom, His love. But prayer is not a one-way street. It's not just about us talking to God, it's also about God talking to us, about Him responding to our cries, about Him reassuring us that we're not alone. When the psalmist says that God heard him from his holy hill, he is expressing his assurance that God is with him, that God is for him, that God will never leave him nor forsake him. This is the power of prayer. This is the power of faith. When we cry out to God, when we pour out our hearts to Him, we are not shouting into a void. We are not speaking to a wall. We are talking to a God who hears, who cares, who responds. We are talking to a God who is present, who is active, who is involved. Through prayer, we express our trust in divine protection and receive assurance that we're not alone. The psalmist describes a peace that transcends understanding. I laid me down and slept. I awaked, for the Lord sustained me. Ah, peace. It's a state we all yearn for, isn't it? But this peace that the psalmist talks about is not the quiet after a storm, or the silence of a tranquil night. It's a peace that comes from within, a peace that's unshakable and steadfast, rooted in a deep-seated trust in divine protection. This peace is not dependent on our external circumstances. It's not about how calm the sea is, but about how still the sailor is. It's about the unwavering faith that even in the fiercest storm, there's an anchor holding us steady. It's about the serenity that comes from knowing that we are held securely in the palm of divine hands. You see, when we fully trust in God's protection, we experience a profound peace. A peace that stems not from a lack of trouble, but from a presence of faith. It's a peace that says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. And here's the beauty of it all. This peace doesn't just stay with us in our waking hours, it's with us as we lay down to sleep, and it's there when we wake up. It's a peace that sustains us, that carries us through each day and each night, through trials and tribulations, through joys and sorrows. How beautiful is that, to lay down and sleep, and to awake, knowing that the Lord sustains us. To know that no matter what comes our way, we are not alone. That's the peace of faith. That's the peace that the psalmist talks about. So friends, let us strive for this peace. Let us trust in divine protection, and let us experience the serenity that comes from this trust. Because remember, trust in divine protection brings peace, even in the midst of turmoil. Psalm 3 then, is a journey from fear to faith, from turmoil to peace. It's a deeply human cry, a plea for help when surrounded by adversity. But it's more than just a cry. It's a declaration of trust, a testament to the belief that we are never alone, even in our darkest hours. We've traced the journey of the psalmist, from the desperate plea for help, to the divine assurance that protection is always at hand. We've witnessed the transformation of fear into faith, and the emergence of peace from the heart of turmoil. In the cry for help, we see the raw honesty of human struggle, a recognition of our need for something greater. But the psalmist doesn't stop there. He moves forward, embracing the assurance of divine protection, trusting that he is held, even in the midst of chaos. From this point, the cry of faith emerges. It's a bold declaration, a resounding statement of trust in divine protection. It's the courageous choice to believe, even when the physical eyes see only adversity. Finally, we arrive at the peace of faith. It's a tranquil state of mind, a profound sense of security born from trust in the divine. It's the perfect end to a journey from fear to faith. And so even when the odds seem stacked, we can find comfort and protection in the divine. This is the power and promise of Psalm 3.